Yo, I hope everybody can hear me, yo. Shouts to StreamYard. Shouts to everybody who's tuning in, man. Shouts to everybody, man. It's another State of the New York Knicks podcast, man. This podcast, I wanted to focus specifically on the NBA draft, right? And today I got a special guest. And with this special guest, first of all, I want to say I praise the Lord for this special guest because a lot of people would have been left. And I'm gonna make sure today on this specific live stream and podcast, I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna shut the F up and fan and make sure that this man gets all of the points with these young draft prospects that we could get today, because I gotta get everything out of this man when it comes to draft prospects, because I don't know when the fuck he gonna come back. You know what I'm saying? I don't know when he gonna come back. So since I don't know when he gonna come back, I gotta get everything. I gotta get all the young draft prospects, and also I gotta get a little insight on what should I do, or what should a person that, he does, what should they do if they want to go in that same trajectory? Yo, I always say, oh my God, why do I butcher everything so bad? So bad. I don't even want to curse too much, but my guy, Urson Demar, is in the building, and I'll probably butchered his name too, right? And you can follow my guy on Twitter, the capital DEMIR NBA. My guy, NBA draft aspiring scout, contributor for the shot quality website. And that shot quality website, you could actually see that website on Twitter and Instagram. So that's a great website that everybody knows. That if you only know about websites like that if you're you knee deep in. You gotta be knee deep in. And shouts to my guy, the Alcatraz. Why y'all give me all these names to pronounce, and they mad hard, bro? They mad hard, bro. Yo, what's up? What's up, King? Keep going. Great content. Yo, I appreciate you, man. I'm trying to bring the best content that everybody knows. But my guy, Urson, right? All of my work is available on Substack. Substack is a platform that I found out about on a low. You know what I'm saying? All right, so my vision for Substack, I got my vision from Miss Teresa. Miss Teresa, if you're a Knicks fan and you're on Knicks Twitter, you know who Miss Teresa is, right? She's a huge Liberty fan, and she has a Substack as well. And I was reading her Substacks. I'm like, why can't I do that? Why can't I write about the Knicks and write about anything that pertains to New York? Why I can't do that? You know what I'm saying? So I said, nah, I can do this too. I started writing Substack. Shouts to Mr. Reese, man. Huge Liberty fan. I made sure that I share the space that they was doing right now, because those guys, they do a Liberty space after every game. So I made sure that I share what she was doing. And I'm listening. I'm listening. Substacks. What's Substacks? Substacks is a place where you can really get your articles out. And shouts to my guy Aaron. This guy has been doing Substacks for a minute. It's been for a long time now. And I like the fact also that he said, yo, I come on your show. That's the last thing. For anybody who comes on my show, or who comes rock with me, rock with your boy State, that means a lot to me. And it means a lot because tomorrow is Father's Day. And Father's Day is a sacred day. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Father's Day is a sacred day. And to have such a sacred day and to have a guy who knowledge exceeds mine when it comes to the NBA draft is just so beautiful and everything. So let me make sure that I get my guy Aaron in here and to bless the wonderful Knick fans. Aaron, man, I appreciate you pulling up in here right now, man. This is a blessing, bro. Thank you.
State, the OG of Nick's Twitter. Thanks for having me, man. And to talk draft with you guys, I'm looking forward to it. And let's make the wonderful show, man.
Yo, Aaron, I sent you a bunch of things
Yeah.
in your Twitter DM, right? And I sent you what we're gonna do this show on. But me, I like to do everything off the top of the dome so I don't feel unauthentic to Knick fans. I would love to know, where did you get your start at when it comes to, draft analysis? And because you do better work than I do. I'm not gonna lie. Like I want to get the way you at when it comes to draft analysis. But where did you start with that work? Also, when you say NBA, because you're a part of the NBA, I'm not, right? I'm trying to get to the point where you're at, where you have those connections. I don't have those connections. I don't. But you are a person that been in the NBA and you work and you have those connections. Um, where did you start? Heritage, everything, bro. Like, how did everything start for you? That's what I would love to know. Before we even get the draft prospects and anything, like, I would love for people to know, like, who you are and the essence of, like, what you do and things of that nature, bro.
I appreciate the love, man. If there's one thing that I've learned is, you have to take the compliments. I'm not in the NBA, but slowly I am building something up from nothing. But to come to your question, brother, is I started watching European basketball, man. It was always like that until like 2017, 16. It was like I was always, inspired by American basketball. I didn't like American basketball, man, because it was all, if it exceeds 100 points, it's all scoring heavy. I'm more of a fundamentalist guy, man. And to be honest, the people in Europe, I live in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. The people in Europe don't have the American athleticism, so that's one thing of the spectrum. And the second thing, when you can look at the fundamentals, the European game wins from the American game. That's why, for example, centers, you see so much of them in the NBA. It's a trend of the last 10, 15 years. And why did I follow American basketball? It was about 17, 18. It was, yeah, man, I have no team in the NBA. But I started with the Knicks, to be honest, because at the time, no disrespect, but they were the worst team in the NBA, man. So, and I was always inspired by the draft, the whole process of the idea of it, because you have a few powerhouses, big city markets, and then everyone has a fair shot, man. You can be bad for 5 years. If you build through the draft correctly, you can have a run for 5, 6, 7 years, man. So that's why I started to love American basketball more than European basketball at the point. And for me, the draft is fun, man, because every year you see a lot of these new players. And that's what I was focusing on, these new players. I want to get these new players, know them before they even scratch the surface, in terms of the NBA. So that's how it started for me. And then right now, I am doing it for 2 years. I am following the NBA just to keep up, man, to see what the NBA is looking for. What you see nowadays with these analysis, amateur analysts, just like myself, is they look at what the player can do, but I look at what the player will do, what the NBA team is looking for, what the coaching staff is looking for, what this role is going to look like. That's what I look for, man. That's what I'm focusing on. I think this season is when I starting to take it a lot more serious, man. Stay consistent. I have over 70 of these reports, and I'm just trying to write in the style that an NBA scout would do, just focusing on the role, what he can do, what he will learn, because a player starts learning when he goes to the NBA, and he has very little time to make it happen. So there's a lot of risk, and I try to, put that risk into perspective, put the player's role into perspective. So that's how it started for me.
Yo, that's great, bro. I would love for love. I would love for you to talk about your upbringing, and when it comes to your like upbringing, you're different from mine, right? And Aaron, like, you you gravitated towards me like about last year, and you've always sent me like positive messages and things of that nature. So me, I come from New York. I come from Harlem, straight out of Harlem, and that's different from where you come from. And the fact that you wanted to join me on my platform, first of all, I'm grateful. Second of all, you know, we come from two different areas of perspectives of watching basketball. So I would like to know, like, where did you grow up at? What's your favorite food? Just for people to hear on the audio, because it's great. It's great. You know what I'm saying, man? I'm over here watching Dante DiVincenzo, Big Pazza, and I'm learning about the Italian culture and things of that nature. And I'm learning it more because I'm a Knicks fan and I gotta watch Dante DiVincenzo every game that I watch. But talk to the Knicks fans about where you grew up at, and by the way, you have a great accent, by
I appreciate you,
the
man.
way. Lovely accent. But talk to the Knicks fans about where you from, like where you grew up at it, and how did you start in the business that you're in now, and also what was your motivation behind it? You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't just start a podcast just because I wanted to start it. I wanted to start a podcast because, hey, I wanted to get my inner feelings out. One and two, my parents supported it. They was great supporters, and since they was great supporters, I say, hey, why not? I should do it. But go ahead, bro.
Yeah, exactly, brother. I grew up in the Netherlands, born and raised there. I have Turkish roots, so my parents are from Turkey. But I was born and raised here in the Netherlands. I think the one thing that we have in common is, the Netherlands, they have a history in what's now the American state, the United States, You come from Harlem. Here it's called Haarlem. It's the same thing, but it's 10 kilometers away from me. So I live in a small, that's a weirdly coincidence. But, when it comes to the culture, I was born and raised here. My favorite food, I like Thai food a lot from Thailand. That's my favorite food, man. I love spicy food. That's my thing. I've never been to the States, but that's my goal for next year. I want to go to games. I want to go to college games, high school games, the summer circuit. I want to do these things. Get in the gym. That's my next goal, man, because doing it from behind the screen is 50% of it. You don't see everything. And for me, why did I start it? It is I always like basketball, man. Basketball is not a popular sport here in the Netherlands. It's very popular in Turkey, where my roots are, and that's what I started following it. And after that, it became natural, man. It's an hobby. You do it because you love it. If you love it, you're doing it with passion. So that's how it started for me. And then I was thinking more seriously about it. I think last year, because I'm in Europe and you're in the United States, and I started getting connections while I am 6 times zones away. So that's why I was, thinking about it. And it's okay, if I really put effort in this, I can maybe, make a living out of this. Because in my day job, I work as a financial controller for a large secondment firm here in the Netherlands. But that's my passion, man. That's just what keeps the money going in. To raise, I have I'm married, 3 kids. No, sorry, 2 kids, and you have to pay the bills. So that's where it ends up. But if I can make a living with basketball, man, that's my passion, man. Then I will move. Then it would open things up for me. But that's a long shot. I think I'm taking it organically, growing organically, not I'm not getting dreamy about it. Just doing it because I love it, man. And if you love it, you do it with passion. So that's how it started for me.
That's great, man. That's great, man. And I just wanted to get that out the way first because I want people to always understand that you know people of different ethnicities, we could all like relate, or we could all come to the same table and we can eat wine and break bread and drink and drink. I want to make sure, man, because with being a Knicks fan, right? Like you come from all diversities. You come from all ethnic groups. Like I've seen Knick fans who I'm walking with my duffel bag in the street, and Knick fans be like, "Yo, man, we'll get him next year." I can't tell you how many times I got that already. Like, we'll get him next year. Ain't no problem. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm glad. Like, you came up here and explained your upbringing and everything. And with that said, let's get right into it. Because we got a lot of we got a lot of draft talk to talk about, man.
Yeah,
A
for
lot of
sure.
draft talk to talk about. I sent you a list and sent you everything that I wanted to ask, like in order. But the first thing I wanted to tackle with is how do you
Yeah.
feel about the Knicks situation? Because I definitely didn't send you this question, but I wanted to just ask you this off top. How do you feel about the Knicks situation? And how do you feel about me saying to you that Tibbs played rookies already? If the Knicks draft two rookies in the first round, Tibbs would play them both. What do you say to that right now?
I would love it, man, because to come back to the draft itself, if you look at the media, everyone says a weak class, it's a weak draft. I don't buy that, man, because every class has value. This year's value is that you have a lot more of these NBA ready type of players. Not really freshmen, one and dones, or underclassmen. Don't have a lot of them outside of the top. And the Knicks draft have two late first round picks, so they're in a good position to get some experienced players. And I think Tibbs likes the who play hard, toughness. I think toughness is very overused nowadays. I think if someone plays hard, it's toughness. But for me, fundamental toughness. You have fundamental toughness, and you have physical toughness. I think Tibbs like these fundamental toughness guys. For example, Deuce plays hard. He's a dog, but if you look at this game, he's more so in his decision making. He's a dog. He's not just wilding on the court. He's making good decisions and putting his effort in. And this year has quite a few of those players, man. Because with two first round picks, it's I think if I'm not a cap expert or anything, but I try to learn more about it. In terms of the cap, I think the Knicks are in a good position because Randall, Bronson have good contracts, and if OG Anunoby wants his money, rightfully so. So they can experiment with it. And with two first round picks, you have two players who can potentially be ready to contribute, but be on low contract in terms of the cap. You have them for 4 years like that. So I would support the idea to draft both players, man, because if you trade these picks, you're just moving the problem, because next year you have to take the same decision. But right now, tips you can use rotational guys because you have seen 7, 8 players, man. Josh Hart play 48 minutes. You shouldn't do that in regular season. So if you have more depth on the bench, that's a good thing. So that's why I hope the Knicks will use both first round picks to draft for depth and to slowly develop them, via the G League, via some reps there. Deuce did the same thing. Or, giving them a small role, not really garbage minutes because that doesn't help a player, but to expand the rotation to 10 players.
That's a great answer. And to follow up with that question, my next question is the trades, right? So in the event that the Knicks trade up, do you think there's any possibility that the Knicks can get a top 15 pick if they trade up using Mitchell Robinson or iHeart to get that available pick? And the teams that I'm looking at is Memphis, OKC, and Chicago. And the reason why I'm looking at these three teams is because all three teams got top 15 picks, but all three teams got holes at the starting center position. And I wanted to see if the Knicks could, if they want to pay iHeart. I don't prefer to be in the second apron with iHeart and Mitchell Robinson. But how do you feel about, the Knicks getting in the top 15 in this draft? Do you think that's possible? If you don't, what's your reason why? If you do, what's your reason why?
I think they can, man, because if you look at all the draft capital that they have, they can make a trade. They have they have players, movable salary, they have the picks. But to be honest, I wouldn't be trading up, man, in this class. Because at the top in the lottery you have quite a few of the long-term bets. Because why people make this a weak class, because I don't agree with that, but it's the general consensus, right? Why do you think it's a weak class? Because it's not really star heavy. You need these guys have a lot of potential, but they need some time. And the Knicks timeline is they second round playoffs, and you want to move up from that, right? So I think if they trade on draft night, which is likely, they will trade back with one pick, get some second round picks in the early second round. So you have again that cap hit. You have some cheap contracts on guys who can, take on for 1-2 years and have no obligations after that. I think they will use at least one first round pick. But if Tibbs is like, okay, two guys on, guaranteed money is too much for us. If the front office
Mhm.
thinks like that, they will trade back, maybe get some more assets, because the Knicks can afford a big trade. They have everything to do a big trade when they want to. But when will they do it? I don't know. And the Leon Rose is very cautious with that. I think not trading for Spider was a good move a year after that, but last year we was like, okay, we should do it, but it didn't happen. So if they trade, they will trade back, man. I think trading back to the second round should help them in terms of if you pick 26 or 25 or 31, 32. That doesn't really matter, because there's not really much distance between these picks. After the lottery is very close, man. From 15 to 35, that's a very solid range where everything can happen. So trading up, I don't think that's a good move.
Okay, that's a very interesting answer. And with that said, the NBA draft is on June 26th, I believe. If it's not on June 26th, it's on June 27th and June 28th. They split the NBA draft into 2 days. Why do you think they split the NBA draft in 2 days before we actually get into the draft? Is it because agents asked for that, or what you think is the reason for them doing that?
I think marketability, man, because after the first round, all interest goes away, man. And then if you look at all the second round successes of the last years, the Knicks have two: Mitchell Robinson, Miles McBride. You have Nikola Jokic, the MVP, picked in the second round, which was on. They were airing a commercial when he was getting his name called. It's something like that. I think marketability, man. The NBA is growing, the money pool is growing. They have to do something. So I think it's more of a money thing, and I think it helps front officers to make better decisions, make more thorough decisions, because right now you have 10 minutes basically from pick 30. You have pick 35. You don't have much time because names are on the board off the board. Of course, you have your plan, but I think this way front officers can make be more experimental trades, be more thinking about, okay, the first round these guys are off the boards. What are we going to do? I think it helps every team. It helps the market. It helps the NBA market the draft better. It helps the teams make better decisions. I think it's a good thing. I think that's the thing. Maybe agents, yeah, man. Those big agents have a lot of power, but I think, yeah, because they are the most who benefit. I don't think yeah, they have a say in it, but I don't think they have much of a say in it because the NBA and the teams also benefit from it.
Yo, that's a great answer. Shout outs to everybody in the chat right now. D Black, he asking about Lloyd Malevi Loins. And I know I butchered his name. I'm pretty sure Aaron going to definitely talk about that name right there. Shouts to Coach. He's always like inside of the chat. What he said? I heart Precious Burks need to be replaced. Cheaper, younger options. Something I agree with. Now, with that said, Aaron, the NBA draft. So the question I sent to you, right?
Yeah,
The Knicks. We're just talking about the guys that they worked out, right? And the guys that they worked out over here: Cedric Howard, Ryan Dunn, Joseph Garrard III, Coleman Hawkins. I'm gonna butcher this name, my lord. Adria Jelavolic, Dennis Jenkins, Kashard Johnson, Malloy Leons. I probably butchered his name too, and Bubakar Sane with Tyler Smith. So, with that said, Urson, give us your analysis on these players. You know, I didn't watch enough college basketball this year, so I'm glad you came on my pod to speak. With that said, the floor is yours. a lot of these players I don't want. Like I don't want a Joseph Garrard. I think he's too small, and I think he's too old for the Knicks pick right now. Outside of him, I don't think the Knicks would pick the guy from Serbia because that's not the way they've been drafting the
Yeah,
last couple of
exactly.
years. And with that said, yeah, outside of those two, I think everybody else is valid. But give your take, and thank you
Yeah.
once again for joining the show.
Hey, for sure, man. I have a top three of those names. I think the first name is Ryan Dunn, man, without a doubt. I think if you look at his game, he's one of the best defenders in college basketball. So automatically people are like, okay, so he's a tips guy. The thing with him is, if you look at his offense, is really non-existent for the college level. So that's the important nuance, because Virginia rolls a very old school, very slow pace. So they have 30-minute second shot clock, and they score 50, maybe 45 points a night, sometimes 60 if they're really hot. So the nuance there is the offense itself is really bad, man, because of the team. And his role is as a utility player. Because if you look at his defense, he does everything well, man. If you look at his footwork, if you look at how he slides his feet, he can, be a multi-positional defender. Nowadays he guards five positions. That's throwing so easily, man. It makes no sense. But in his case, he can be guarding the one, two, three, and if he continues to fill his frame at the NBA level, he can guard a four as well. So those are the guys that Tibbs is looking for. OG Anunoby had some injuries. Maybe the injury concerns will continue, maybe not. But with him, you're getting an outstanding utility player who keeps the defensive rating of the Knicks in par. But the biggest question, and that's why I think he's going to fall on draft night, is how much does the offense improve? And I wrote in that piece about him, solely focusing on what is bad now and what can be better if he does X, Y, Z. Not a complete package, but only the offense, man. If the offense clicks, he can have a long career in the NBA as a very solid rotational player, maybe a fifth starter, but that's the top. And if I look at this game, he got his points as a play finisher. He's an active cutter, but not he's moving around constantly. He's making good decisions. Okay, I'm gonna pivot here. If I see, drop coverage, okay, how do I respond to that? Okay, maybe I will be less active. But if I see dribble penetration and the defense collapses, at the moment the help defense comes to help, he cuts, man, active cutter. And that's how he get his points at the rim. He's an efficient finisher at the rim. And in a jumper heavy NBA, you have to have a jumper to survive in his position, because he's not a five. He cannot only play as a play finisher. He has to contribute to keeping the offensive rating at par. So the jumper doesn't look good, man. It's very bad. If you look at the mechanics, it's not good. I think he suffered from a lack of confidence because of it. Because if you look at his jumpers, it's always push shots. He's pushing it. He's, forcing it. It doesn't really natural. He sets his feet quickly, so that's a good base to be a good shooter. He sets his feet quickly. He doesn't fully bend his knees before the jumper, but the jumper itself, it doesn't scream confidence, man. It screams insecurity. And defenses are keen in letting him shoot. And, from air balls to airballing free throws, it's all in his mind, man. And Virginia, that's why it was not a good context for him. Because he plays in a tough, ACC conference physical basketball. That's what he thrives off with his interior scoring. But when it comes to his jumper, he needs time, man. And I think the Knicks can give him time because Westchester is a perfect environment for him to improve his offense, get his confidence back. And I think as a pro, he has everything to succeed as a pro, man. Because if you look at his game, he's team first. He is actively coaching on the defensive end, picking up rotations his teammates are not. So at the NBA, those are pros, so they know how to set rotations and follow them up. So he can be put in the defensive scheme more easily, man. And Virginia was not, yeah, it was tough, man. His offense can go either way. But what's a very underrated skill with Ryan Dunn is connective passing. He shows some sign as a short roll playmaker with his frame. I think he was measured at 6'7" or without socks or something, but he was always 6'8". That's what I put him. But that's his size. But he's strong, man. And if he continues to fill his frame, he can be serving as a pick and roll rollman or as a short roll playmaker, man, out of the ball screen. That's what he does well. He wasn't asked to do that often at Virginia because that was really not their game. But that's something that I can see him making a difference for himself in terms of, earning a spot in the rotation and earning the most money out of his career. He's a good passer. He sees the floor very well. He executes basic reads. He's not a creative passer or a life dribble passer. That's not his game, but more of a connective passer. And he doesn't have to be a life dribble passer because he's not going to get much on ball reps to create his own shots. That's not his game. And with the Knicks, it's guard and wing heavy, right? The scoring. So someone has to be the utility player. Right now, Josh Hart is the utility player. He improved as a 3-point shooter, opening his game up, you know. And outside of his hustles, playing hard, he's making a living with his 3-point shooting, and that's why he was one of the most important players outside of after Bronson. I think he was the most crucial player, especially in the playoffs. And Ryan Dunn can grow into a similar thing, and not because they look alike, because with player comparisons, you see all these interracial comparisons, cross-racial comparisons are weird for some reason. But if I look at the Ryan Dunn's game, I see an ultimate connective piece, man. And his defense is NBA ready, more than NBA ready, but his offense needs work. And that's why I think the front office will look at that guy and I was like, okay, we can help that guy. And if he's there late in the first round, we should take him, man. For the Knicks, with the list you sent me, he's my favorite player by far, man, by far.
Yo, that's a great answer. With that said, the Knicks, they have the 24th and 25th picks, right? And me, I want the Knicks to double down, on these picks with wings. But with that said, I want to go to your actual Substack. And in your Substack, you got a lot of draft prospects on your big board. I would like for you to tell Knicks fans who you mocked to the Knicks. Why did you mock them to the Knicks, and why do you think they fit the Knicks ultimately?
Well, I made a big board. I didn't make a mock draft yet. The mock draft is coming up, man. But we know in the mock draft, I will mock two players to the Knicks. I don't, take trades or something into consideration. I think the second one that I have for the Knicks specifically is Pelly Larson from Arizona. He's a bit older, but that's why I think he's most NBA ready. I think he's my favorite fit man for the Knicks outside of Ryan Dunn. Because if you look at Pelle Larsson, you see offensive versatility in this game. And with offensive versatility, I mean is he can do multiple things. I think the Knicks are trying to experiment with inverted pick and rolls, but they don't have the personnel yet, man. Because if you look at the guard depth of the Knicks, I think Miles McBride can be ultimately be one, but that's not really his game. I think they lack pure physical strength at the guard positions. Jalen Brunson is strong, but he's a bit undersized to be playing as an inverted pick and roll rollman because he is most at his best as a scorer with the ball in his hands. So asking that from him would be, not a good thing unless they pass out of it or do something else with that offensive scheme. But that's looking too much into it. That's experimenting. I don't think that they do that with him. But with Pelle Larsson, he's strong, man. At about 6'6", he has that old man's type of game, purely based on the fundamentals. But he's a surprisingly well athlete, man. Because if you look at all these white dudes, they if you look at he's not a good athlete, but he's strong, man, and he's a good athlete. He has a decent burst, some good quickness, and Arizona. During the season, they were answering all these teams that were exploiting their two-man lineup. To be honest, they have a lot of length and size in the interior, and teams were scheming to take that away from them, pressing the perimeter. Eventually they figured that team out, but with Pelle Larson, how they responded, but they were playing inverted pick and rolls with him as the short low passer because he's a good playmaker, but also experimenting with switching and then using him as the scorer. I think he was more of a complementary player. He was not a ball dominant player. And his 3-point shooting was efficient at Arizona, but as Arizona was a good 3-point shooting team anyway, so that maybe degrades his personal shooting numbers. But if you look at does it all guard, because you want to fill the rotation, those guys are not going to start on year one. If they can grow into a starter, that's a home run, especially late in the first round. because you're looking for versatility. You're looking for how do you keep your scoring level at par, because the Knicks defense is good. I think the Knicks defense is less, less, impactable in that type of thing. If you put a new player in, he's going to bring it down, because the Knicks are very defense minded with the players they acquire. They all have it. President Achua has it. OG Anunoby has it. I think if you look at the free agency, Isaiah Hartenstein was not a good defender, but he has his his own game as a passer and as a finisher and a screener to make that up. But if you look at the draft as well, man, they draft defenders, good defenders. That's what we're looking for. And I think with Pelle Larson is he can guard one, two, maybe three if he gets a bit stronger. He has good upper body strength. That's something that's given for him, and he moves his hip very well. So if you look at this game, he fits the Knicks in that regard that he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. He's a good connective passer. He is a screener. He's an active off-ball screener, and he's as a play finisher, he cuts, but that's not really his game. His game is to set him up as a shooter, and that's what the Knicks do with their guards. So with to be honest, he's not on your list, but I would use my second first round pick on him, man. You have Ryan Dunn, who's a sophomore, and you have Pelle Larson, who's a senior. Bring in experience, bring in a guy who can play right away without the obligations of having to invest on ball reps, etc., etc. Because the Knicks are too far in their development, team wise, because they are now trying to compete to win the East, right? And if the team stays healthy and you put some extra pieces in rotation that makes sense, that fit, you can maybe beat Boston next year, or the year after that. Because I think this team is built in a way that they can stay in win now mode, especially if they figure out the center rotation. But maybe coming back to the next question is I wouldn't draft the center because the center is one of the toughest positions, man. And the Knicks can't afford to, you know, develop too much in this stage, to experiment too much. They need help right away.
Why do
But
you think
Ellen
so?
Larson is sorry.
Why do you think so?
I think if you look at the centers, I think what they have to do is certain things. I think the center position nowadays, unless you have really, outlier skill sets such as Jokic and Embiid, you have to be a connecting piece. You have to screen, roll, continue doing that, and pass out of the roll or play finish. I think the center. I don't buy the idea of the center having to guard out and guard the perimeter. I don't think he has to do that, especially if you have good perimeter defenders, so you can defend four out and keep your center in the paint. And, teams are switching till they get the big man out of the paint and get more efficient there. But I think if you look at the team at the Knicks defense, why Hartenstein improved so much as a defender because pure context. He was put in a situation to focus on his role. He didn't really have to do much with guards, on the perimeter. And if he does, he has great help defenders to cover him up. And that's why I think if you look at Miles McBride, that's why he's now playing toward a starting role maybe next year or a year after that. Because he's thriving off of that. And he can make up for defensive deficiency from, for example, Brunson. And that's why I think the Knicks shouldn't draft the center because the center is an experiment, man. Because the center has to grow into a role, grow into a context. And Mitch had to go to the same way. He came out of high school to, you know, go to the Knicks. He's a freak athlete. The injury issues are a bad thing with him. That's unlucky. I think Mitch is the last real center, project that this team on the Tips will have. Because if they go for a center, they may sign a center, man, or just trade for a center, or pay Hardenstein a lot of money. That's one of the things. But drafting a center, yeah, I would love the idea, but he would be drafted to slowly be brought up, slowly be prepared for the first team. I don't think if you look at any of these names in the class, I saw Kalel Ware in one of the questions. Is
Nope,
Kalel Ware is going to come in and help right away? I don't think so, man.
I don't think so either. So one of the next questions I have: if Nikola Topic falls, would the Knicks take him?
That's an interesting one, man. Because if you look at all these mock drafts, man, he's top 5, top 10. To me, Nikola Topic, he's an exceptional player in terms of pick and roll playmaking. in terms of craft, how he creates scoring angles for himself, because he's a way below average athlete, man. He basically has no athleticism compared to American players, you know. But how he makes up for it is with his court vision, with his playmaking, how he creates angles, how he reads the game. At only 18 years old, man, he's still one of the youngest players in this class. And I saw Topic play 2 years ago for the first time, and I was like, okay, he is more of a floor general. That was his game back then. After that, he really evolved as a scorer, man. But at the youth tournaments, even with them, despite picking up a lot of points, it's the context is they are playing bad athletes. And his team, Crvena Zvezda, it's Red Star in Serbian, but they loaned him out to Mega Basket, and Mega Basket is owned by one of the most powerful agents in Europe, Misgo Raznatovic. He owns the club. Nikola Jovic, who plays for the Heat, came via there. I think Nikola, Jokic, the MVP, played there as well. They have a lot of NBA players, man, who are drafted out of that club, and
Mm-hmm.
the agent is benefiting from him playing. So what they do is they play in the ABA league. That's the league in the Balkans, the countries Croatia, Serbia, etc. And they have the Serbian league. And what they do is they build a team in a way that they don't win. They don't look to win. They look to market players, and they have a club to market these players. So the biggest nuance in Topic is how much of the production is real. I think the flashes he shows are very real, man. He can grow into a very good scorer in the NBA, but is he a point guard one? I don't think so, man. I have him around 16 maybe, because I believe the playmaking is real. The live dribble passing is real. How he creates angles as a scorer, that's very real. But he will have a lot of issues, I think, with his young age, adjusting to an American game as a below average athlete. And as a defender, it's very underwhelming, even at that level. And with at that level, I mean that he's playing against an okay number of athletes, against
Mm-hmm.
older players who have much mature bodies, because he still has to. He's tall, but he has to fill his frame. He's not strong enough yet to If a forward switches on him, I think despite the size, he has no chance of guarding him at the rim. That's not really his game. His game is to be that more so that floor general, the old school floor general. A few years back, you had the real point guard conversation. Remember that?
Yeah.
He's more of a real point guard. But if the Knicks can have a chance, man, to lay the first round or get trade up to 17, 18 to take him, that's the type of guy I would be trading up for, man. Because the Knicks developmental team, especially since Rose over, they're very good, man, and they show patience. They signed Miles McBride after the second round, gave him a few years to develop, gave him a decent contract, but they have a lot more value, man. And with Topic, it's the same way. I think if you buy the offense, you can fix some of the defense, you are getting a very solid rotational piece, man. Maybe your second point guard off the bench, leading the second union. But that's a few years down the line. But if he's there in the trade up situation, man, I would trade up for him. Because in terms of pure talent, he's one of the best in this class. But in terms of everything else that has to bring to the table, he needs a lot of time to develop, and he's a way below average athlete. So that's devaluing draft stock a little bit. But Topic, I like him a lot, man. But the context with the club owner owning the club, etc., that has to be said, because if you look at draft spaces nowadays or how it's covered, no one mentions that. But people in Europe, they know. But that guy is such a powerful agent that you stay out of the way of that.
That's good. That's a great answer. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Giving me a lot of insight on everything. I think my last question for you, Aaron, uh, and just thinking about the Knicks, like overall, what do you think the Knicks do during draft night? My bad. What do you think the Knicks do during draft night? Who do you think the Knicks take ultimately? And do you think Tibbs play this player? Because a lot of people say to me, hey, State, Tibbs not going to play a rookie and this, that, and the third. Do you see any young player that the Knicks would take that you're about to say that could ultimately crack the rotation game one to start of next season?
Yeah, man, we talk about Ryan Dunn and Larson. I think they can play in the rotation, but they won't start in year one. No chance. they can start and play in a rotation. But any of the other guys that you mentioned in the list, I think that the list is a very good one, man. Thank you for that, because them working out for the Knicks helping me because we have a lot more focus on the guys that we want to cover, you know. But if you look at Melavai Leons, for example, I saw him in one of the questions as well. Coincidentally, he's born in the same small town as I am in the Netherlands. So that was crazy when I found out about that. But to keep it real, I'm not getting biased towards him or something. I have to keep it, totally neutral. I wrote in that piece about his game, and if you look at what the Knicks are looking for right now, is they need an efficient shooter off the bench who can switch on defense, who recognizes rotations very well, who can switch onto two positions because no one can guard five positions in the NBA. There are very few people who can guard four positions in the NBA, but if you can guard two, maybe three positions, you're in a very good position to get a long term career. He's a bit older. I think he's almost 24 years old. He's playing for a mid to low major conference. How you see it? He plays for Bradley, but he was two-time Defensive Player of the Year in this conference. And he started his career here in Amsterdam, and then he traveled to play to the United States to play junior college basketball, which he did for 2 years, and then he transferred to the Division One level, and that's how he got his career from there. And I know that he's working from for quite a few teams because I got in contact with his agent, and after I wrote the piece, we got into contact and we shared some ideas about that. Because I know he's working for a lot of more teams, and I think if you're looking for a guy who's going to rise on draft night and maybe get his name called, I think he can be a player that's going to get his name called in the second round of the draft. Despite most of these big boards, etc., etc., they don't mention his name because he's older. He plays for a mid-major to low major. That's how we see it, and he has a specific role. Those are the guys I like because they can grow into an NBA role quite fast. And with him is if Tibbs drafts a guy in the second round and you see him play on day one off the bench, that's a guy I would not be shocked, man, if that happens. Because even if he gets undrafted, he can always be signed on a two-way, right? I think Melvin Lyons is by far my favorite of the guys that you sent. I think he is a realistic option for the Knicks as well because he fits everything that the Knicks are looking for. Good defenders, he checks that box. He has a specific role, he checks that box. He doesn't have to have a lot of long-term potential, man, because he's older and long-term potential sounds good, but the context is does the NBA team have the resources to fund the long-term potential? Because teams are not going to give the ball to him on ball reps to develop. Teams are not going to give him a lot of time to develop because as a second round pick or as an undrafted free agent, you don't have a lot of time. You have to be there on day one. I think Melvin Leons can be there as day one because what I saw in the playoffs, of course, I haven't seen every game. That's not realistic. That would be me lying if I say that. But if I, from what I saw, is that they need a shooter, man, off the bench. I think Josh Hart shot ridiculously good, but that's not really his percentage. I don't think that if you ask him to do the same next year, I don't think he can do it. But outside of Josh Hart, who was left, man, that could put up his numbers? No one. But who has the defensive impact that he has on the court? Not quite a lot of guys either, right? So I think to purely to have that shooting depth off the bench or a reliable shooter off the bench who can rotate very well in defense, who recognizes defensive schemes without any issue, who can switch and then maybe take on smaller players and the guard on the perimeter, that's the type of forward that you need him for, man. He's more of that tweener between a wing and a forward. I think his NBA game is more of a forward because he has a bit of a slender build. If you look at him, he looks skinny, but he looks a bit of the skinny toughness, man, because he's not shying away from contact. That was his game. He loves to initiate contact, but not by fouling, but he's very using his upper body strength in his chest to absorb the contact. That's what his game. That's his advantage. But he was also a bit older because if he's 23 and he's playing a 19-year-old freshman, that's an easy strength advantage, right? But at the NBA level, I think he can match the toughness, man. That would be my favorite second round, maybe undrafted free agency signing.
Yo, thank you, man. I appreciate that, man. A lot of insight today on the NBA draft, man. A lot of insight today on the NBA draft and just the upbringing. Like, I think that's mad intriguing. I'm glad you like fully explained that. Um, Any draft sleepers that you have in this NBA draft, and ultimately, who do you think turns out to be the best player coming from this draft? And if and though the last piece of that question, if you're the Hawks, I'm not taking Saul one. If I'm the Hawks, I'm taking the French kid. I'm taking the kid from Europe, number one. I'm taking him number one because I don't want to be the team that does the DeAndre Ayton mistake again.
Yeah,
And since that mistake happened recently, I don't want to be that team. So,
exactly.
how you feel about everything I just said, and thank you once again for joining the show. Appreciate it.
I'm grateful, brother. And I agree, man, because I started laughing because if you look at Luca, how do you pick 8 and 1? Even back then, man, because he was 18, he was one of the best players in Europe. But that was why I left. But to be honest, who should I pick one if I'm Atlanta? It's tough, man. It depends on what Trey's doing. Do they keep Trey? Do they trade Trey? If they keep Trey, I think I would go for a big man, man, because I don't think Sar's the number one player in this class, but I think he makes a lot of sense for Trey because he needs a center. I think Onyeka Okongwu is not a full time center. He's more of that power four to power five who needs to improve a bit as a shooter to really make it happen. That's his focus. And I think Ricochet, I'm a bit lower on him. I'm going to explain why. But I know why NBA front office like him is the combination of exceptional shooting. That's a given. I'm not going to take that away from him. But and the second thing is how he moves. Why does a guy like Trey Murphy, for example, is so highly regarded? Who's going to sign a very big contract, maybe a max contract, because he has the potential to be a very good 2 to 3 level scorer with elite shooting, and the way he moves is exceptional for a player his size. I think he's the same. I think I don't compare them as players, but why do I like Paul George so much? He has the same thing, and he improved his handles throughout his career. And with Ricochet, you have a player who is an exceptional shooter, who is, if you look at how his body is built, how he's built, and how he moves, that's exceptional for his size, man, for this class. But everything else is not on the table yet. He doesn't have that FU attitude that you have to be succeed as a star in the NBA. He doesn't have that. He's very modest. But the nuance with him is if you look at these French youth teams, they all play a role. They don't have any offensive freedom or creativity to express it. And at his current team, who played to win the French league and the Euro Cup. The Euro Cup is the second tier international league in Europe. So there's a very high level to play, especially for his age. But he played in the role as well there. So he's settling to a role. And why NBA front offices like him at number one is because they are going to give him the ball. They're going to give him the confidence to try and take over the game as a scorer, as a self-creating scorer, instead of as a rotational player or as a role player who's going to shoot threes, space the floor. That's it. I think that's why he's being seen as the number one player. At the early of the year, I had Ron Holland at one. I had Ricochet at two, and after that, I was not really convinced of anything yet. I didn't know. But why I was so high on Ricochet is what I value the most for wings is offensive creativity and handles. If you have those two things, you can have a very long career as a 20-point scorer, maybe get an all-star appearance, etc., etc. I was banking on him learning that because I knew that the team what he was going to is going to play him. Because Victor Wembanyama was a marketing project last year. It was the de facto number one pick. If he plays 10 minutes, 20, 30, 40, it doesn't matter. He's the number one pick. And with Ricochet, these French teams who are smart, they did the same thing. Okay, we have one top guy. The intel's right. NBA teams love him. We're gonna make him one of the important players of the team. But we want to compete as well. So it's not really Wembanyama ball or high school basketball where you have one high school star and the rest doesn't matter. The same with him, but he had to play in the role. And he did well in his role. He went into a shooting slump after February, which is a dangerous time to be in a shooting slump because college basketball is in the second stages of conference play and NCAA tournament is coming up. So that's not really a bad time. You will lose draft stock because momentum shifts a lot, and momentum is what keeps most of these draft boards alive, or maybe decides what the structure will be. What the research is why he's being marked on one is teams know we can teach him that offensive creativity. If we teach him that, um, we have a very impactful wing scorer who can be a multi-time All-Star. And in this class, that's worth a top three pick easily. I think that's why he's going number one, man. But to be honest, I want to take him number one if I'm Atlanta because it's Trey's team. And Trey needs a center, man. Trey needs a utility player. But do you take a utility player number one? Of course, that's overpaying for it. So it's a dilemma, man. Because if you look at the class in terms of talent right away, there's not really much options at number one. So that's why Ricochet really is one of the top players. But they will likely go for a utility player because if you look at other guys in this class, for example, guys I like, Stefan Kessel, I like him, but I don't think he's 1A material in that way that he's going to be picked number one. I have him number three. I have Klingen at two. But yeah, man, but because I'm getting maybe too long with my answer there. So that's my take on this issue.
Nah, bro. You on my shoulder to speak and make sure you get all your takes out. I
I appreciate
appreciate
it.
it, man. Nah, man, I appreciate you for pulling up to the show, man. This was great, man. I learned a lot. Um, I definitely learned a lot about these draft picks. I want to definitely get you on the show again. Um, what's today? So today is the 15th. I definitely want to get you on the show again before the NBA draft
Hey,
because I want
100%.
to, yeah, because I want to make sure that these Knicks fans know who the Knicks could be targeting, why the Atlanta Hawks could be possibly picking not Sar number one, but another guy at number one. I also, wanted to know some of these prospects that you wrote about and you spoke about a lot on today. I really appreciate that. Last but not least, before we get out of here, I would love for you to tell Knick fans where they could find you, where you're at. The 152 people that's in watching it live, man, I appreciate y'all too, man. Happy Father's Day weekend. If you're a father, happy Father's Day to you too, brother. But with that said,
Appreciate it, bro.
what do you got coming through soon? Tell people where they can find your Substack articles at. Because Substack is a great, great, great app that allows people like me and you to get a lot of our thoughts on paper. Well, imaginary paper, like internet paper, and people read it. Sometimes for free. Sometimes a person will want a person to pay. Me personally, like it's free for me or you pay. I don't give a shit. I just want you to read the goddamn Substack. That's the reason why I wrote
Exactly.
it. That's all. But with that said, thank you once again, Urson. Aaron, I'm sorry, man. I'm bad with names.
It's all good, man.
I'm even bad with names.
Really, it's if you really want to know, it's pronounced Ersin, so Ersin. But
As it,
most of the American people that I talk to, I've heard a lot of them, man. Even in the Netherlands, people say Esrin or Ursin, Demir, because that's how the language is. So it's all good to me,
yes,
man.
yeah,
But Aaron was definitely a new one.
but thank you once again, man, for joining the show. But please let people know where they can find you. What's some of the things that you got coming up, and how you feel about the NBA draft overall, and things you feel about moving forward with the Knicks and the NBA in general.
Man, I've written over 70 of these in-depth pieces where I'm focusing on both offense and the defense. And that's my thing, man. NBA roles. What I do is I write on edimmermba.substack.com. In the if you see the name, and there you can follow me, man. You can subscribe for free. If you want to pay, that's greatly appreciated. But I don't do it for the money. Just as they say, I just want to for people to find my content, man. And what I do is I focus on the less coveted players. You don't see me write about Alex or Ricochet, or I wrote about Klingen, but the top guys, you don't see me writing about them. I focus on value. I focus on the guys who don't get the love, who don't get the exposure, but who can be NBA players. That's my target, man. I next season, I'm gonna write more than 100 pieces. My goal is 100. Even though there are 60 draft picks, you have a depth of 100 players in the pool, right? You can get drafted. So why not write all about them? And I'm gonna. What's upcoming next is a mock draft. I'm gonna do a mock draft. Still busy on that. I have a piece on AJ Johnson, the high school sensation who went to the NBL, who's played for the Illawarra Hawks there. He's projected to be a second round pick in this class, but I see more in him. But he's a bit raw, but I'm working on that piece. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, that will come out. Yeah, man, why I love the NBA draft is I think the NBA draft is the base, the fundament to the NBA itself. I think free agency signing will always be there, but the NBA will always be relying on the draft. And my thing is, I want to be finding value that other people are not really looking at. Because it's easy to scout the top 15 guys. Jonathan Gavoni puts out a draft mock in right after the lottery or right after the draft itself for next year. And those are the names that 90% of the people focus on. There is always a guy or two or three or four or five who will scratch the surface and, be climbing on boards later on in the season. I want to be first on those guys in terms of finding value. And at the end of the year, there's always guys who have had great years with NBA projectable roles. They don't get the love. So that's what I'm focusing on, man. So if you're looking for the top guys and nothing more, you shouldn't subscribe to the Substack, man. But if you want to learn about the players that don't get the love, that don't get the name called around the water cooler at work, then, man, I'm your guy, 100%.
Yo, thank you, man. I appreciate you, man. Great show, man. Once again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, man.
Yeah, man. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers and to everyone that was, taking the time of their day, just to hear me and stay talk about the NBA draft, man. So thank you to y'all.
Yeah, man. Thank you to y'all, man. Knick fans, y'all the best. I appreciate all of you Knick fans. And I wanted to make sure that I highlighted Urson today. That's the reason why, like, when he was giving his take, I didn't want to be on the screen because I don't know shit about the draft this year, man. We was winning games, man. We was winning games, man.
Next year, man. Next year. Injuries,
Next year.
man. Look at
But
the starting five. I saw a tweet. I don't know who it was, but it was like the starting five of the regular season. None of these guys was playing, man. The last game is crazy. Still sticking around, man. I think next year this team, if they stay healthy, why not win the East, man? To be honest, Boston, of course, is crazy good how good they are, man. But
that's a fact.
It's not David versus Goliath. Someone's gonna beat
them. It's not. I just think that this year's draft, the Knicks can find value within first round picks, even the second round pick. And I told my guy Brutus today on a space, I said, look, Brutus, I think whoever the Knicks draft, I think they're playing in a rotation from day one.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
extending that rotation from 8 to 9 or 10, and that's the goal in this draft, I think.
I think they're playing from day one, and he like Tibbs. Well, Tibbs don't play rookies. I'm like, well, Tibbs played every young guy we drafted from day one. It's like
exactly.
I think
look at Miles McBride, for example, right?
Yes.
How big his role became.
So Miles kind of different, right? Miles he was in the second round, and we drafted him in the second round, but he waited his turn. He waited 2 to 3 years, right? I'm talking about the first round picks, like Obi and those guys. They played out the gate. He didn't DMP them guys. Like he played them. And possibly they didn't fit with what Tibbs was trying to do. So in a draft like this, where you're drafting 24, 25, I think you could catch people off guard and say, okay, I could draft Tyler Smith and Ryan Dunn back to back. And I know one of them won't be in the rotation.
Because it quickly was also a late first round pick, and look at him.
What Grimes too?
And who's to say that you can't find a player like him, right? So we're 100% right in that one,
man. Let's see, and this is why I wanted to talk the NBA draft because, Knicks fans, we forget certain things, right? But the draft is very important. And I'm glad we had this conversation today. With that said, my guy Urson, man, I want to get you out here. Special salute to you. Appreciate you, brother, for joining the State of New York Knicks podcast. Man, this is so great. This is so great. We're gonna have another one
I'm
though.
grateful, brother, that we allow me to let me come on the show and talk draft with you guys. I would be honored if I can come back again. Maybe
Yes.
before the draft, or after the draft, to evaluate the picks. But I'm leaving it to you, man. And shout
Um.
out to Knicks Nation. Yeah, man. I'm rooting for the Knicks, man, for next season because that's my thing, man. Because I don't have a team, and I can't stay loyal to the team because I'm based in Europe, man. I'm not in America, so that's the context for me. But I like two teams in the NBA that I follow, man. I like the Kings and the Knicks, man. Because the reason 5 years ago everyone was hating these teams, so I was like, okay, man, someone has to love them, right? That's time for me. And I was growing into something like that. Yeah, man. I'm rooting for the Knicks next season, without a doubt.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you, crazy Knicks fans, for pulling up in here today. With that said, I'm gonna get out of here. And y'all know the song that I always get out of here with. Y'all know the outro, man. But Urson, I appreciate you. I'm gonna get you back on the pod either right before the draft, or right after the draft, so we can talk about why the hell the Knicks picked the players they picked. Because it's no way they're not trading out of 3 straight first rounds. I think
That's crazy, man.
yeah.
That would be a first, right? That's
Now,
crazy.
now you're just begging for injuries. Like
Yeah, exactly.
all right, but thank you, man. Appreciate you, Urson. Appreciate StreamYard for having this beautiful YouTube live stream. I want to make sure that StreamYard, they get their love a little bit the past like 2-3 live streams. The next couple of live streams, I probably put my logo back up there. I definitely will for the family podcast. I got a family podcast coming up, so I appreciate all of y'all that will tune in for the family podcast. But with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Urson, I'm out of here, man. Salute to you, brother. Salute to you, wonderful Knicks fans, all of you guys and people who's in here today. I love y'all. Peace and blessings. Happy Father's Day. I'm out. It's your boy State.